Hello, everyone. Thanks for being there. So we're going to see together which one you should opt for between WebHooks and WebSub to stream your event in real time. Quickly to introduce myself, my name is Audrey. I am full-stack developer at Sagi, which is a big data platform available as a PaaS, ready to go for your data engineers and data scientists. I'm also the co-leader in France of Devoxx for Kids, which is the coolest initiative of the world, but you already know. And you can find me on Twitter with this handle. So let's talk about real time, which is, as you have probably noticed, the new norm. So every application you're using, whereas it's on your personal life or professional life, is using real time. So it's really what users are expecting from us now. And actually, it has created some new fancy things in our brain. It has created FOMO, the fear of missing out. So the three little dots dancing around there are telling me that something is happening, something I would like to know more about. So that's the reason why, I'm staying on the application. So real time is really what we need to keep our user intention alive. And today we are not going to talk about data. We made it last year. If you were there, something was drawn. We're going to talk about events, because events are important too. You probably want your users to be able, to at first be notified each time something new happened, but also to be able to react to things happening in your application. But events are a little bit different from data. First of all, they're completely unpredictable. You never know where your new fancy sensor will detect something. And then they have very different usages. They can be simply consumed as they arrived, like a new video on YouTube or a new blog post, but they can also be the beginning of something different, of a workflow, for example. So let's start directly with technologies you can use to stream them. So usually polling is mentioned, and poly in the perfect and wonderful world of theory, where I would love to live there, because actually I'm pretty sure there is unicorns there. So polling in the world of theory looks like that. So I'm making a request, waiting for the answer, making the same request, waiting for the answer, and so on and so forth. The thing is, we are living in the cruel world of practice. And in the world of practice, there is no unicorn, first. And polling looks much more like this. You will make a lot of useless calls before retrieving something new. People at Zapier, I don't know if everyone here is familiar with Zapier. Zapier is an application which allows you to build your own workflow. So you can say, for example, each time I received a new email in my Gmail inbox with an attachment, save the attachment in my Dropbox account. So people at Zapier has made a lot of studies on polling, and realized that more than 98% of polls were just wasted. It's what they call the polling madness. And we definitely should stop using polling, because it's not a solution, it's a hack. So now let's talk about real solution. And first, let's talk about WebHooks. So WebHooks, it's sometimes called user-defined HTTP callback or user post-defined HTTP callback. It's a concept, a method. There is no specification. It's not under any recommendation like W3C recommendation, for example. They got this website, which is pretty nice. You will find a lot of documentation and a Google group, which is pretty active. And they got a very nice logo. And that's all we can say about WebHooks. At this precise point, it's just YOLO. Everybody is doing WebHooks the way they want. So in theory, WebHooks looks like that. First of all, the consumer is going to send a post request to the API provider saying, okay, I would like to subscribe to your event source, and here is my callback URL. The API provider is going to send an answer, say, okay, subscription created. And then each time the API provider has something new to send to the customer, it will make a post request on the callback URL we provided with data in the payload. Sounds pretty simple, but actually it's not that simple to use. You have to make a little bit of work before using it. So first of all, as a consumer, you get to define a callback URL, which has to be accessible from everywhere. So not behind a proxy, no localhost, accessible from outside. And as an API provider, you get to first create a subscription endpoint, ideally with 2 resources, but remember, there is no specification, so up to you to do it the way you want. So basically, it would be really nice to have those 2 resources, the /webhook, which will be used with a get method to retrieve all webhooks available, and with a path method to create a subscription. And the /webhook/id, which will be used with the get method, basically is the equivalent of a poll. It's made to debug. And with a put method to update the subscription, because perhaps you have changed your callback URL, and the delete method to simply close the subscription. And then comes the very important part for the API provider, because you get to implement your webhook queue. And so inline HTTP requests, it's not really a solution. It means that every time you have something new to send, you're going to loop over all your subscriptions and send the request programmatically. So you will have to deal with failure and retry. It will delay your answer. It's not really a solution. It's something you can use for proof of concept, perhaps, but that's all. Or you can opt for SQL-based queue. SQL-based queue is not the most scalable solution, but it's something nice if you can't afford to add another piece of technology to your stack, which sometimes happens. So in this case, you will simply, each time you get a new event to send, create an event in your database, and then having cron task, for example, looping over and send those notifications. But the best solution to me would be to use an AMKP broker, if you already got one or can afford to add one to your stack, like RabbitMQ, Redis, whatever. Because, well, first of all, it will save your database resources, and that's what brokers are doing the best, right? Batch is to be considered in case you know that your API will send a lot of events. Facebook for API, they're doing batch, so they're sending events every 5 minutes, or if there is more than 1,000 notifications unsent. And then comes the very important part, because you get to implement a fancy UI, to let your consumers set up their webhooks. And that's something we are not all of us really fond of, UI. So here I took GitHub as an example, which is probably one of the best you can find. With GitHub, you can create webhooks on both your repository and organizations. So here it's a repository of mine. So you're simply going into the settings menu and then in the webhooks menu, and you can create it by passing your payload URL. That's your callback URL. Choose the content type you would like to receive, and then select which events you would like to receive. So by default, you're just receiving the push events, but you can ask to receive everything or just select some. And then each time there is a new event, you will receive this. And this payload is really nice, actually, because so the payload is really complete, and most of that in the header of the request, you get this X-GitHub event, which tells you everything, which tells you precisely what has happened. Was it an issue? Was it a pull request? Was it a merge? Etc. So now looking at pros and cons of webhooks. So people were really happy at the beginning with webhooks, saying, okay, we got real-time updates for real. Actually, it's not real times, because as we've seen previously, it will depend a lot on the implementation you choose for your webhook queue. And 5 minutes, trust me, it's not real time when it comes to financial data. But it's almost real time, which is, really nice. Without dedicated resources, because obviously, when we were using polling to make this, we were having usually some dedicated resources to handle those connections, especially if you were making long polling. So here, you don't need this anymore. That's a pretty good point. It's easily consumed. It's a post request. We already know how to deal with post requests. And it's easily integrated because, well, all you need is a web server, and you probably already got one, right? Now, looking at cons, it provides a poor user experience. Obviously, I show you GitHub, which is one of the best you can expect, but keep in mind that it will not always be the case. It's a nightmare to debug. To make things clear, there is company which have based their business on debugging webhooks. I think that means a lot. It does not work with all clients because my smartphone, for example, doesn't really care about post requests, just don't know how to handle that. And the manual setup is also an issue because it means that you can't programmatically create webhooks. Now, looking at some known issues we're having with webhooks, first of all, one which is common to both the consumer and the API provider is DDoS attack, because both will expose a public resource to the outside world. So this resource can be catched up by some malicious user who will, for example, subscribe you to unwanted events, and it will end up with a DDoS attack. But it can also be simply because as a consumer, your server is not able to handle every event received from your API provider. Then another problem is missed notification, because there is no specification. So the API provider does not have to check that you received the notification is sent, You can simply send it and, well, the rest is your job. So in case your server is down for any reason, you will end up with missed notification. And in case the API provider is taking care of your answer, if for any reason your server is not responding with the expected code but still has received the notification, then you will have the duplication. So, a quick checklist to implement webhooks. So as a consumer, you get, well, it will be best, let's say, to have one callback per webhook, simply because it will be easier to debug and make it as less human readable as possible. Don't follow your traditional API scheme. Make something completely unguessable from the outside world. Check if there is an expected answer, and if you are sending the right answer. Be sure that you can handle request number so that you don't end up with a DDoS attack. Monitor your payload side. I know this one can sound a little bit odd, but GitHub, for example, they are keeping the payload at 5 meg, and so if the event they have to send you is up than 5 meg, it will just not be sent. And be sure that you can handle duplicates, of course. And as an API provider, okay, it's not mandatory, but definitely implement some kind of authentication like GitHub is doing. It will make the world a better place for everyone. So looking at those issues with webhooks, people have decided to move to dynamic subscriptions. And so a few projects appears, RESTful webhooks, which honestly, I haven't been able to find a lot of documentation on that. So I think it was this as it was born, something like that, that as it was born. RESThooks, which is implemented by people at Zapier, and WebSub. And we're going to see a little bit, to dive into WebSub a little bit more. So WebSub, which you probably know already, basically, because it was formerly known as PubSub Hub, fantastic name, PubSub and Push. It's an open protocol. It's now W3C proposed recommendation since April 2017. So that's the moment, when guys from the marketing came in the game and said, PubSub Hub, not a really fancy name. Let's rename him WebSub. Yeah, that was a pretty good idea, actually. So it's based on the publish-subscribe pattern. You will find a lot of common things with webhooks, but it's also based on topics. Basically, a topic is just a resource, but you will find this very often in documentation. So I think it's quite nice to just know what it is exactly. It was originally designed to manage RSS and atom feeds, but now you can use it with almost everything. And you get those two very useful repositories, the PubSub repository. Yeah, a lot of training to say it, trust me. Where you can find a lot of resources like implementations in different languages, so that's very useful, and the W3C repository about WebSub to follow the evolution of the project. So basically WebSub, it's an environment of publishers, hub, and subscribers. So publishers, for example, you can think about Medium, which is probably the most famous, I think, of them. CNN, I'm sorry, I was looking for real media, but I only found fake news. Don't know why. WordPress or Blogger. Looking at Hub, Superfeeder is probably well, yeah, probably the most known on the market. It has been acquired by Medium last year, but Google App Engine provide a free hub, which is really nice too. And looking at subscribers, you probably are using Feedly or Flipboard, I guess. So yeah, that's some of these sectors. So how does it look publishing with WebSub? Well, first of all, you get to, as a publisher, go through the discovery step. So it means that you're going to provide 2 links on your header, on your web page, whatever you want. One which is called Hub, which is the hub you're going to publish your updates to, and one which is called Self. And Self, obviously, is yourself. And once those 2 links has been published, subscribers can send a subscription request to the hub saying, okay, so it's a post request to the hub saying, I'm in mode subscribe, that's the topic I'm interested in, and that's my callback URL. And optionally, you can also provide a secret token. Once this is done, the hub will answer with a I think I missed something. I got a slide missing, I think. So the hub will answer with a request saying, okay, it's going to make a GET request on your callback URL, taking those parameters like the mode subscribe, the topic, etc., and said, here is a hub challenge, which is basically a random string you have to send back to the hub to prove that it's really you, that you want to subscribe to this feed, that it's not someone else who is trying to subscribe upon you. And very important thing, you get to send only the hub challenge in your answer. Otherwise, it will be invalidated. So now looking at consumer setup, and I know it can be a little bit surprising, but I took here Facebook as example because actually Facebook is one of the best examples you can find of a webbook. So when you want to create a subscription on Facebook, first of all, you get to choose between different topics, user, page, permissions, etc. And then you get to choose which fields you are interested in. And then we can start publishing. So the publisher will ping the hub each time you get something new to send, say making a post request, saying, okay, I'm in mode publish. Here is the URL of my updated resource. And here, the hub will proceed to content distribution. And so it will make a post request on your callback URL. Okay. It will provide those 2 links we've seen previously, except that here the self link will be updated with the updated content. And in case you provide a token previously, it will proceed to an authenticated content distribution with the SHA-1 signature. So it's not really safe because it's SHA-1, but I guess it's better than nothing. And here comes the tricky part, because then the subscribers has to make a GET request to get the updated resource. Yeah. It means that Facebook, for example, is sending you this. So you can see which field has been updated, when, but you don't know what has been updated. That's the reason why I took Facebook as an example. Actually, Superfeeder provide a little application you can play with to see what it looks like. Most often, if it's HTML, which you are expecting to receive, you will have a little header or little title. You will have a little bit more information, but you will never have the entire content. And there is a good reason why. It's to save resources from the API provider, because the API provider knows that not all of these events will be read by everyone. So, and let's move to the third part of WebSub, which is the unsubscribe process, because there is a clear unsubscribe process in WebSub, which is very close from the subscribe process we've seen previously. So you're going to send another post request on the hub with callback URL and saying that it's time, okay, I'm in mode unsubscribe. And the hub is going to proceed again to the verification of intent to check that it's you who is asking to unsubscribe from this feed and not anyone else who is doing it on behalf of you. So it will send another hub challenge, and once again, you get to send the answer verification request back. So now looking at pros and cons of webhooks we've seen previously. Well, we fixed the poor user experience because now it can be, it's programmatically, so we fixed all the manual setup. The thing is, we have to make another call to get the data. So it's very different. Looking at known issues, the real nice thing is that we fixed DDoS attack. So let's make a quick demo. I'm going to make it on Webhook, and I'm going to need your participation. So I got this repository of mine, which is basically the code of the demo I'm going to make. And I would like to create a webhook on it, and so that each time someone is stirring the repository, we will see its logging. So the repository is Audrey Neveu webhooks demo. And let's move to the code. So it's a very simple JavaScript application. I only got an Express server. At the moment, it only knows how to handle GET requests on the root resources. So we're going to add a post request on the /webhook. Okay. And so we're going to look at the kind of event we received. So we are going to look at headers from the request, and more especially at the X-clip event we've seen previously. Once we get that, we can switch on the event type. Okay, and we're going to look first at the ping event, which is the one GitHub is sending to you each time you create a new webhook. So it's a kind of debug event. We're going to answer to the API provider because GitHub is expecting an answer for us. So we're going to send new ping event received, for example. We're going to log it. Okay, and break. And now we are going to look at the watch event, which is the one we are interested in, the one which is fired when someone is stirring the repository. So we are going to send another message to the API provider saying watch event received, for example. And we are going to log a little bit more information. We are going to say new watcher and look at the body of the request for the sender login. Okay. And just in case, we are going to add a default, which is going to send an error status, unsupported event, for example. I'm going to log it. Okay. Here it is. Quite simple. So, first of all, I'm going to run the server. So not app.js, it's listening on 8085. Okay, hello Devoxx, it's running. If you remember properly what we said previously, you can't expose the localhost resource, so I'm going to use ngrok to expose it to the outside world. Okay, so here I got my resource. Okay, and now, okay, so I think it's, yeah, a little bit better than that. I'm going to create the webhook. So here I'm copy-paste the URL ngrok provides me, and I'm adding the /webhook path of my resource, the one I declared just there, okay? Then I'm going to opt for JSON, and I'm going to choose events I'm interested in. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to keep the push one, but I'm going to use the watch repository, the watch event, sorry, and add the webhook. So here it means that an event has already been sent, which we can see there. Okay, we got a new ping event. And now each time someone is stirring the repository, and you can do it so that we will have more feedbacks. Yeah, we got new watches. So it's pretty simple. Okay, so as a conclusion, I would say that, as you probably guessed, both technologies are very different. When it comes to workflow, like, for example, every time there is a new merge event, I would like to trigger a Jenkins job and to notify developers by email, you will use webhooks. We can also think about webhooks for IoT issues because typically IoT events are completely unpredictable, but you want to react immediately. You want to be able to react when your home sensors, for example, has detected an intrusion, you know? But when it comes to, so in this case, it means that events is more important than data. The data inside is not really important. The thing is, I want to react to the event. I don't care what pull request is it, which has been merged. I know that I want to trigger the build. But in case the data is more important than the event, you know, for example, that every video posted on YouTube will not be read by the user, even if he has subscribed to the channel. Well, in this case, it's much more useful to use WebSub because you will be able to reduce your resources. And that's all for me. Thank you very much. We got 5 minutes left in case you get questions. Question, everyone? Someone? No? Okay, so I think we are done. Thank you very much.